Hello, this is Nigel. It is the 7th of July and it is 6:47 p.m. A cold night in New Zealand on a remote farm somewhere in New Zealand. And we just arrived back on Tuesday. Actually, we left Sydney on Monday evening and we arrived on Tuesday early morning, and the weather was so bad when we were leaving Sydney that the plane was flying circles over Sydney Airport and it couldn't land to pick us up, and so we had to wait. It was delayed in a couple of hours, and so anyway, I thought I'd make this video just to sort of update my friends and say, yeah, we're back in New Zealand. And continuing with that story, there was a couple of guys who were flying to Christchurch on a different flight, and they couldn't get to they'd been waiting at Sydney Airport since lunchtime on Monday. And we just got talking to them, we didn't know them. And they were going on a different flight, a Jetstar flight. We were going on Air New Zealand, and their flight had been delayed and cancelled. One flight had been cancelled, so they'd been switched over to this Jetstar flight that was going to Auckland and then to Christchurch and then a different flight to Christchurch the next day. And so their boarding call came over the speakers, and they boarded before us. And then we finally got to board, not about, 20 minutes later, 20 minutes, later, we boarded our plane, and we subsequently took off and got back to Auckland Airport at 2 a.m. and there was no sign of their flight, and it said on the board that it hadn't arrived and it was delayed, or it was not there. Then anyway, by about 3 it arrived, and so we happened to see these guys come out, these two guys, and they were going to do some company work in Christchurch, and they had a hotel paid for in Auckland City and by the company. And I said, well, there's no point in going back to Auckland to your hotel, because by the time you get there, you're going to have to come back because they were leaving in the morning. So they agreed with me, and they ended up staying at the airport, and we stayed there because our flight was just a couple of hours away anyway. And so we stayed till 5, went over to the domestic airport and took a flight to Hawke's Bay, and here we are, somewhere in New Zealand. So anyway, it's taken us a little bit time to settle into the new temperature. Big change from the hustle and bustle of Sydney, and it's really nice to have lots of space, just beautiful with all the space and so forth. Today we went in to get some food supplies in Hastings, and I must say I was very shocked and surprised at just how quiet the streets were from what we were used to a year ago or so when we had last been. And it was very quiet. What I noticed is there was a lot of people wearing masks, and some shops were saying, "Oh, have you got a mask on?" or something. And anyway, we didn't happen to be wearing masks. And what I did notice also was that people were very serious. There was kind of a very somber, that word seems to describe it very well, somber sort of mood over the city. Now, I did go into another shop to see somebody who I thought would be there, but they weren't, and chatted to the guy, and he said that it was slightly better in Napier, and that makes sense because Napier is a little bit more affluent than Hastings generally. However, this is our new debut to New Zealand, and on Saturday we are going to be heading down to a meeting of a lot of freedom-loving souls, and just make our presence felt. But yeah, it's wild times, and I'm pleased to be back in New Zealand because it sounds like the next month or two could be a little bit, possibly some lockdowns, or possibly some food shortages and whatever, So it's good to be in a place where you already know the rules, know how far you can go, which way, and just feel comfortable about it. And so that's good. We're not entirely happy with what we achieved in Sydney. We wanted to do more, but we had to come back, and I won't go into those reasons right here, but we are happy that with the progress we did make, and there's some interesting things that we hope to share with our fellow New Zealanders in the coming months. And yeah, so that's kind of pretty much what I was getting on here to say. We've got a few ideas, a few plans, but we really are trying to reinvent our lives and kind of just start off in a new direction. And so what else? World news is looking pretty ridiculous as usual. The mainstream media, well, as one silly example, this evening, policeman news on, what was it, on Radio New Zealand, I think it was, a policeman has caught COVID after a woman breathed in his face. Well, really, I mean, she breathed in his face and he suddenly fell over with COVID, or like how many other people did he come past it? I mean, how do you prove something like that? It just is very funny in a sad sort of a way, but the kind of news that they're actually putting over is just ridiculous rubbish. So that's what we are back into and so forth. That obviously the news is just not worth even looking at. And I was actually meaning to write a letter to sort of an open letter to journalists and to the mainstream media, saying, really, you really need to get your act together, because what we see in the headlines is so ridiculous that it couldn't even be construed as news in any sense of the idea of news. Just ridiculous. So would love to catch up with those of you I know, and anyone I don't know, I'm happy to always speak to too, and so that we can get something going and get some sort of future created that's a little bit more cheerful than what a lot more cheerful than what the mainstream media are making out to be news, which is not news. It's just some reporting bad, terrible, and worse. So there we go. That's my little update, my little report, and I hope to be doing more of these now. I've just had my Facebook restrictions lifted, hopefully. So hopefully we'll be able to do this video upload and share it widely. And I really also want to get around the country and have some meetings or something like that around the country and kind of just see what we can get going in a more positive aspect. So that's all for now. Okay, over and out.